Okay, so we are moving on to the second part of today's session, and we are starting that at exactly 7:40. So this is what we'll be discussing under that, right? We are going to talk about variables and data types. You are going to really enjoy this session. Okay, so we are also going to understand the concept of variables and data types, right? We are going to learn how to declare, very important. We're going to learn how to declare and initialize these variables, right? Please take note because some of the things I'm saying, it's not in the slides and you might be asked like questions on them during the quiz, right? So please take note of every single thing I say, even if it's not in the slide, all right? Okay, so like I said, we are going to talk about the concept of variables and data types. We are going to learn how to declare and initialize a variable. Very, very important to me. If you don't want to understand anything at all, just understand this one for me. Just for me, not for you. All right. We are also going to explore the basic input and output operations, right? We've already used one, which is the cout, that's the character out. We are also going to learn how to use the character in, that's to receive input from the user. So without wasting much time, let's just dive into it. Okay, so variables are essential in programming, right? There are things you can't do away with in any programming language. You can't do away with variables because you need, in programming you are dealing with data, right? In all our applications, softwares that you'll be building, all those things you are going to deal with data. Even in robotics, you are going to deal with data because your robot has to sense a particular data. It has to work on that data and send the data to something. So data is something you can't do away with, right? It changes, right? Data changes from one place to the other based on the program. Okay, so it's something you are not going to do away with. So it's essential in programming as they store and what manipulate data. So variables are used in manipulating data. So you store something in the variable, and then the next day you add something to it. The next day you subtract something from it. So you are manipulating that data in that variable. And variable is the only thing that will help you to do that because it stores that data. And whenever you need a result in that data, you can go for it from that variable. So C variables are just containers that stores something, right? Like your Vena bottle that stores water inside. Your Vena bottle stores what? Water inside. You can pour some of the water out, you can add some, you can, do a whole lot of things to the water in the Vena. You can even add color to it and add sugar to it if you want to. Yeah. All right. So it allows for dynamic and flexible code. That's it. That's all what variables helps us to do, right? Okay, so we are also going to talk about data types, right? Int simply means integers, right? In C++, when you see int, it means integer, right? And we all know integer from class 1, right? We know integers are negative and positive whole numbers. Here I said the integer variables or int variables are used to store what? Whole numbers, but it's what? Negative and positive whole numbers. The fact that I said whole numbers doesn't mean positive numbers alone or negative numbers alone. Both negative and positive, right? And we also have float variables that stores what? Decimal numbers. So there are cases where you will be dealing with data that is in a floating point or it's in um a decimal. For instance, the temperature of something that is in some decimal number of decimal places, or how fast someone is, right? It's not all that you would get them in whole numbers. We know that some things like ages and all that, you will find them in a whole number. There is no one who is 1.645 years old. I don't think there is someone like that. Okay, so it's either a whole number or you don't have an age at all. All right, we also have character variables which are used to store a single character. Please take note of that. So we use the character variable to store a single character. We also have the string which stores group of characters. So Amma is going to Kumasi. That's a group of characters. Even space bar is a character, right? Please take note of that. Even space is a character. In programming, you need to take note of all those things. All right. And we also have bool. Bool is a type of variable that stores values with only two outcomes. It's whether true or false. If it's not true, it's false. If it's not white, it's black. If it's not on, it's off. If it's not one, it's zero. So data with only two outcomes are mostly stored in bool or bool variable um, types. All right. So we are going to move on to the definition of variable, which I've already said it. A variable is a named storage location in the computer memory, right? So our application is going to run on a computer, right? And the computer is going to name a particular location, which is going to use that location to store a data, right? And like I said, there are different data types. So every data and the type of variable you would have to use. So if you are storing, let's say, a name of a person, so maybe the variable is what's called person's name, and that person name variable contains, let's say, Ajua Mensa or Kojo Kovi or Ajua Puma or Ajua Fowa. You get it? Or maybe you have a variable that you are going to use to store the age of someone. So like we have here, all right, like we have int age. So this variable is for storing age, and the name of that variable is called age. And you could see here that they initialized it. When we say we are initializing a variable, that means you are what? Assigning the variable a first value. Okay, you are giving it its first value. So you can see here that we declared a variable. Now, when you are declaring a variable, it simply means that the variable is not known to the what? Computer. You are introducing that variable to the computer. You are telling the computer that there is something like it should create this space, and this space should be given this name. That's all. You've declared a variable. Now you are telling the computer again that this particular name or this particular space you've created, put this value inside it. That is what, when you are initializing the variable. Please get these things for me and I'll be able to sleep tonight. All right. Please get these two things for me and I'll be able to sleep tonight. So variables must what be declared and what's initialized. And this is how you do it. There are cases where you can declare and initialize them on the same line. It's up to you, right? There are cases where you don't even know what you are supposed to put in the variable. You don't know the value of or the initial value of that variable yet. So you just need to declare it. And then the computer will just what create that storage location for you. Whenever you need to put the thing inside, you just put it inside. Okay, so variable stores data that can be manipulated during program execution. So right now we are saying that we've declared a variable called age, and now we've initialized it with 25. That 25 can change. What if the person grows, a year comes by? That means we have to add one to the age so that the person becomes 26. So variables can be manipulated, right? All right. Okay, so data types, we have the integer, example of integer, we have 5, minus 10, 100. So these are what? Negative or positive whole numbers. These are examples for you to understand them better. We also have floats, which is floating point data types, which is 3.14 minus 0.5, 2.0. And the decimals too, mind you, negative numbers are included. Okay. Then we have character, which stores single characters. We have A, we have B, we have this dollar sign. I want dollar in my account right now. All right. And then we also have um, strings, which store group of characters. So we have some amazing names here tonight. We have Jackie, we have RichTech, we have Abina, we have I am coming. So even the space is a character, and we are saying that string stores what? Group of characters. So have group of characters in this what data type. All right. So what is the importance of choosing the right data type, or the right variable for storing um, you know, a data? So this question is very, very important. Now in programming, you are trying to what? Conserve space. Now, if your program would run very well on a machine, right? That means you are managing your storage, or you are keeping your program neat. What I mean by that is, okay, you want to store a grade. Now we know that grade can either be A, B or C, and I know most of you, your results are coming this week. That's so funny. All right. So that was just by the way. So let's say you are storing grade in a particular variable, right? Grade in a particular variable. And that grade is just a single character. It's either A or F. It's either A or C, or A or B, or B2, or let's say A, B, C, D, E, and F, right? That's just a single character, right? So with a variable, if you are picking a variable to store this particular data, you should pick a variable that would give a storage that is required, not excess. So we will pick what? A character variable, because it's just going to store a single character. If you pick a different variable, you are going to end up wasting storage. For instance, if you pick string is used for what? Storing what? Group of characters. Meanwhile, you just need a single character. So the computer is going to reserve a bigger storage location, right, as compared to the character. And the rest of that location, after storing the A inside, is going to be waste, right? So you'll realize that when your application is running on someone's machine which uses, let's say, 2 gigabytes of RAM, you realize that the application will be lagging and all that. Okay, so that is the main reason. You have to learn how to conserve space in programming. So that is the main importance of choosing variables, or right variables. Now let's look at this: the declaration and initialization of variables, right? We have int quantity equals 10. We have float price equals 3 point. We have character grade equals A. And you have string greeting equals hello world. Okay, so we are declaring and initializing the variable at the same time. You remember that in this slide, right, we were declaring on one line, then we will come and initialize on another line. But here, we are declaring and initializing on the same line, because we know the initial value already, right? So the process of declaring and initializing a variable, the general syntax for doing that. When we talk of syntax in programming, okay, so like I said, I will be mentioning some things that I wouldn't put in this slide. So please, if you have a pen and a paper, then you just jot it down. So a syntax is just a programming rule, right? So every programming language has its own syntax, right? Its own rule that governs that programming language. So C++ says that at every end of, at the end of every line of code, you need to bring a semicolon. If you don't bring it, to give you an error. That is the rule. So please follow it. All right. So in declaring and initializing a variable, this is how we do it. You first of all bring the data type. After writing the data type, you write the name of what? The variable, without including spaces. Please don't include space in naming your variables. Your variable names can be any name. It depends on you. You have to choose your name for your variable. All right. Then you give it an initial value, so equal to value. So data type, variable name equals initial value. All right. So let's look at this one. We were declaring a variable called quantity, and that quantity, we wanted the computer to store what inside? 10. So in other words, we are what? Creating a storage location called quantity. And that storage location, we are what? Storing a value 10 inside. And this is how we did it. Like the general syntax said, in C++, you first bring the data type. Now, what is the data type of this quantity variable that we want to use? The data type is what? Int. That means integer. All right. And then what is the name of the variable we want to use? We want to use the name quantity. That is our name. The name can be anything, right? So we are saying quantity. And always make sure that the variable name references what it stores. So the variable name actually gives you what the variable stores. With a variable name, you can identify what that variable contains, right? So you would realize that the quantity stores something, a quantity of something. You are programming, you know what the quantity is. So that is 10, okay? And it's an integer, so it's going to store what? An integer data type or data. And 10 is what? What? An integer. So that is what is the quantity variable is storing. Another variable is what? Price. And this price is storing what? 3.99. And this 3.99 is a decimal number. And what variable did we say is used for storing a decimal number? Is what? A floating point or a float variable. All right. And then we also have here character or char grade equals A. So we are what? Initializing or declaring a variable called what? Grade. And that variable is a character variable and is storing its initial value is A. So most of you are going to get A in your WASI results this week. All right. If you get it, send me a screenshot. All right. And then we have string greeting, right? So the name of the variable is called greeting. And then since it's going to contain group of characters, we've declared it as a string variable, and we are equating it to what? The first or initial value, which is hello world. All right. So this is the basic input um, using the cin, right? So this particular program, I'm going to run it for you to see, right? So what do you see here? We see include IO stream. That is one thing we always need to do. We are saying using namespace std. You also know that we have to bring this one. And then we are saying int main. I hope you can all see my screen. Int main, right? So int main, that is the main function, the entry point for the C++ programming language. Then we are declaring some variable here. That variable, we didn't initialize it, we just what? Declared it as what? Int user input. That is the name of what? Our variable. And since we've declared it as user input or int, that means that it's going to store what? An integer, because you've declared it as what? Int. So that means we expect the user to what? Put in what? An integer. Then we are printing on, we know cout is to what? Print something on the screen. So what are we telling the compiler to do? Print this one on the screen. Enter A, enter A. So the console will print enter A for us to see. After printing enter A for us to see, we are also saying that cin, character in, that means receive a particular character from the user. And that character, we are storing it in what? What we call the user input variable. That is the variable we've already what? Declared. So you would realize that the initial value of this variable is being received by the user of the what? Program. Then after receiving that variable into the user input, or after receiving that input into the user input variable, we just what? Print the what? User input. We want to print what the user inputted. That is all what this program is doing. So just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to copy this whole program or this whole code here. Then we are going to run it here for all of us to see. All right, I hope you can see my screen. So yes, again, this is it. Just so you see. This is the same code, and I'm going to run it, and we are going to see the results. So you can see here, it's telling us what? Enter a number. And we know that we are going to enter a number which is going to be stored in the user input variable, right? So we are going to enter a number which is 4. So what is the compiler going to do? After receiving that number, this is where it will store it, the user input variable. And after that, it's going to print on the screen, you entered, then the value of what we entered, or the value in the what? User input, which we entered the value to be inputted there. All right, so I'm pressing enter, and you could see that it's saying that you entered 4. and then the program ends. That is all what. So what if you want to, add the 4 to something? We want to, so that is when the logical way of programming comes into play. So you see your calculator, you enter something, you press plus, it takes the input, it processes the input, then what? It gives you the output. So we will get there. All right. So now that you understand this, at your own free time, please try, and because you would have all the slides, I will share the slides with you. So at your free time, you just practice it and then try to understand it. And if you don't understand anything, I'm there for you. All right. For these 2 weeks, I'm there for you. But after the 2 weeks, I'll be going to Dubai. So yeah. All right. So basic output using the cout. Now the output as well. We've already tried the output, right? And we've demonstrated how to print something on the screen. But we've not done a demonstration on outputting something in a variable. All right. So let's do that real quick. Then. So I'm going to copy this code right here. Then I will just replace it with this. All right, so I'm going to run this one as well. And this one is saying that my age is 25. Can you see? My age is 25 because what is the code saying? The code is saying that include your IO stream, which we will always do. We are using the namespace std, that's the standard namespace. And then in our int main, that's the entry point of our program, we are saying that we are declaring a variable called age as an integer. And that variable we are what? Putting in 25. After that, we are printing on our screen my age is, and then the value of the what? The variable called age. So you could realize that the variable here, age, contains 25. That is why it's printed 25 here. Then my age is just some string we wanted to print on the screen. And that is all what the program does. All right, very simple. Okay. So yes, that is the end of this second part of our program. We will be moving to the last part of today's session, and then we will call it an evening. All right. So if you have any questions on this particular part of today's session, just let me know before we move into the more exciting part. Any question, you just raise your hand and I give you the platform. Please, let's do it fast. We just, okay, if you're, okay. So if you're first, then,
Um,
okay.
um, sir, please, when you showed us the other slide, the variables were red, but then the string greeting variable was still white.
The, okay. Okay. So, you are saying the string here, the data type is still white. That's what
Yeah.
you are saying. All right.
Yes,
So,
please.
yes, one thing I need to tell you is we have reserved keywords in programming. Now, reserved keywords are basically words that the um, programming language already knows of. Like it's a constant in the programming language. When you look at all the variables here, the ints we have here, the float, the car, they are all keywords, but the string isn't, right? Please, do you understand it? But it's considered as a variable type because group of characters can also be a variable, which is in a string form. In other programming languages, the string is also part of these ones as a constant. All right, but in this C++, it's not. It's not a constant. But don't worry about it. It functions the same way as the others do. So for instance, let's come here and let's look at our program. So our program is saying that int age equals 25, isn't it? So we are going to create a variable called string. So let's say string name equals, right, Efia, all right, and then we end our line with a semicolon, all right. Then this time round, we don't want to show what, or we don't want to print the age. We want to print what is in the name. So let's see, and let's run this code and see something. So can you see here from the output, my age is Efia? Can you see? My age is Efia instead of the 25, because this time round, even though you can see the string is not colored like the int, you could see here, it's not considered as a keyword. That is why it's just white. It's not considered as a keyword or a reserved word, but it's performing its function as a variable in this sense. Please, do you understand? Don't bother yourself with the colors right now, because if you follow that, it will confuse you. Okay, maybe when you get into the advanced part of C++, you would understand all these things. All right. Any other question? I saw Kim, is it Princela or Princess? I saw your hands up.
It's Priscilla.
Okay. So
Um,
your question.
I wanted to ask how you'll be able to know whether I think it's isn't greater than or less than sign will either be facing the left or the right when you are calling a function.
Oh, that's true. All right. So let me get there for you to. Yes. So the C out and the C in, that is what you were talking about, isn't it? Okay. So all the operators have their meaning. The two double greater than signs. Please hold on for me. All right. So the two greater than signs you see there, they are the operators used to extract input from the standard input stream, right? So whenever you want to use the cin, right? Whenever you want to use the cin, you should use the what we call the two greater than signs, right? Whenever you want to use the c out, for that one, it's giving something out, so it needs to be stored in the what character out. That is, so the direction, just look at the direction to differentiate between that. You don't need to confuse yourself. Always the C in will use the double greater than signs, and then the C out will use the double less than signs. All right. Okay. So I think this is enough question for this particular part of the session. We are going to move to the last part, and from there, I'll give room for all your questions from the first part to the last part. All right, and you close for the day.